He was just a single dad fighting to survive. She was the most feared CEO in the city, known for ending careers with a single phone call. No one could have imagined their worlds colliding, let alone like this. When he woke up that morning, he found the CEO wearing his shirt, and the words she said froze his blood. The rain that night in Sao Paulo was the kind that felt personal, as if the clouds had decided to punish the city for every secret it kept. It hammered the tin roof of the 24-hour garage on Rua Medeiros de Albuquerque like machine gun fire. Marcos Lima, 35, black, broad-shouldered, hands permanently stained with engine oil, was elbow-deep in the guts of a 2008 Fiat Punto when the phone rang at 3:47 a.m. Unknown number. He wiped his hands on a rag that had given up being any particular color years ago and answered. "Allo, Marcos Lima." The woman's voice was low, trembling at the edges, but still carried the unmistakable steel of someone used to being obeyed. "This is Heloisa Castro. My car is dead on Rua Harmonia. I need help. Now." Heloisa Castro. The Heloisa Castro. VRX Global. The woman who had fired 2,000 people with a single email. The woman whose face was on the cover of every business magazine with headlines like, "A Reina de Gelo do Tech Brasileiro," or, "A Muller que faz bilionários chorarem." The woman who, according to the gossip sites, had never been photographed smiling. "How did you get my number?" he asked, stupidly. "My assistant has a list of every open garage in Sao Paulo at 4 in the morning. You're the only one who answered." A pause. A shaky breath. "Please." Marcos locked the rolling door, grabbed the keys to the tow truck, and drove through rivers that used to be streets. He found the black Mercedes GLE wrapped around a light pole like a crushed beetle, hazards blinking weakly. The driver's door hung open. Inside, Heloisa Castro clutched the wheel with white knuckles. Her perfect chignon had surrendered, dark hair stuck to her cheeks. Mascara ran in black rivers. She looked small, breakable. He ran through the rain. "Senora Castro, are you hurt?" She shook her head, but when she tried to stand her legs folded. Marcos caught her before she hit the asphalt. She weighed almost nothing, trembling violently. "I can't go to a hospital," she whispered against his soaked shirt. "No police, no press, please." "Why?" She looked up. Rain mixed with tears. "Because someone tried to kill me tonight." The words landed harder than thunder. Marcos didn't ask again. He half carried her to the passenger seat of the tow truck, buckled her in, cranked the heater. She was barefoot, her Louboutins abandoned in the wreck like fallen soldiers. "There's a hotel," she started. "No hotel is going to let you check in looking like a drowned movie star without asking questions," he said. "My house is 5 minutes away. My daughter's asleep. You'll be safe." She started to protest, then exhaustion won. She leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. His house in Pompeia was small, yellow, peeling, alive. Children's drawings covered every wall. The smell of coffee, baby shampoo, and engine oil hung in the air like incense. He gave her a towel, disappeared into his bedroom, came back with the only clean thing that would fit, an old white cotton shirt, soft from 1,000 washes, the one he wore when he missed his mother. Heloisa took it without a word and locked herself in the bathroom. Marcos stood in the hallway listening to the rain, trying to process the absurdity of the most powerful woman in Brazil about to wear his shirt. When she emerged, barefoot, hair dripping, sleeves rolled to her elbows, the shirt reached mid-thigh. She looked human, vulnerable, beautiful in a way no magazine cover had ever captured. "You want coffee?" he asked. She nodded. He brewed 2 cups of the strong, cheap stuff. She wrapped both hands around the mug like it was the first real warmth she'd felt in years. From the hallway came a sleepy voice. "Daddy." His daughter appeared in unicorn pajamas, curls wild, clutching a stuffed sloth. "Who's that?" "Just a friend who got caught in the rain, Mew Amor." The little girl patted over, studied the stranger solemnly, then fetched the blanket from the sofa and draped it over Heloisa's shoulders. "You look cold," she said simply. "Mommy used to say blankets fix everything." Heloisa's eyes filled. She touched the child's cheek. "Thank you, Princessa." The girl yawned, satisfied, and let Marcos carry her back to bed. When he returned, Heloisa was staring at the photos on the wall. Him in a worn flamenco jersey holding a newborn, him teaching a toddler to ride a tricycle, him asleep on the sofa with the same little girl curled on his chest. "She's beautiful," Heloisa said quietly. "She's everything." Silence stretched, filled only by the rain. Finally she spoke. You want to know why someone wants me dead? I want to know if they're coming here. She gave a bitter laugh. Not yet, but they will. Marcos sat across from her, elbows on knees. Talk to me. Heloisa took a breath that seemed to hurt. VRX is launching Progetto Seu Aberto in 21 days. A constellation of low-orbit satellites that will give free, unbreakable internet to every corner of Brazil and half of South America. Governments love it because it's sovereignty. Telecom giants hate it because it kills their monopoly. I've been getting death threats for 6 months. Tonight someone cut my brake lines. I was lucky the pole stopped me before the descent to Avenida Sumaré. Marcos felt the weight settle on his shoulders like wet concrete. And you're sure? I'm sure. She met his eyes. I didn't call the police because half the city government is on someone's payroll. I didn't call my usual security because I no longer know who I can trust. My assistant gave me your number and said you were honest. He almost laughed. Honest. The guy who sometimes bought milk with coins counted one by one. What do you need from me? He asked. She looked down at the shirt swallowing her frame, then back up. Right now, to let me stay until morning. After that, she trailed off. I don't know. Marcos nodded slowly. Guest room is mine. You take it. I'll sleep on the couch. No. The word came out sharp. She softened. I've invaded enough. The couch is fine. He started to argue, but the exhaustion in her face stopped him. He brought clean sheets, an extra pillow, a glass of water. When he turned to leave, her hand caught his wrist. Marcos. He looked back. Thank you, she whispered. I don't say that often. Maybe never. He gave her a small smile. Get some sleep, Dona Heloisa. Just Heloisa, she corrected softly. Just Heloisa. He closed the door. Much later, when the rain had softened to a whisper, Marcos lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. His daughter was safe in her room. The most dangerous woman in Brazil was asleep in his bed, wearing his shirt. And somewhere out there, powerful people were hunting her. He reached for his phone, opened a message to his boss, won't be in tomorrow. Family emergency, maybe the day after either. He hit send. Outside, dawn crept pale and uncertain through the clouds. Inside the little yellow house, two worlds that should never have touched were now tangled together. And neither of them had any idea how deep it would go. Marcos woke with a crick in his neck and the smell of yesterday's coffee. For 3 heartbeats he forgot why his chest felt tight, then he heard soft footsteps and remembered, the most powerful woman in Brazil was padding barefoot through his kitchen. Heloisa stood at the sink in his old white shirt, sleeves rolled high, hair twisted into a messy knot. She had found the ancient percolator and was staring at it like it might explode. You have to threaten it a little, he said from the doorway, voice rough with sleep. Twist the lid hard or it leaks. She startled, then laughed, a small, surprised sound that didn't belong to the Ice Queen at all. I run a company worth $23 billion and I'm being defeated by a coffee pot from 1998. He crossed the room, took the pot from her hands, tightened the lid with one practiced twist. Their fingers brushed. Neither moved away immediately. Your daughter drew this, Heloisa said, nodding toward a crayon masterpiece taped to the fridge, 3 stick figures under a yellow sun. One tall, one small, one medium with curly hair and a crown. She told me the princess is me. Marcos felt heat crawl up his neck. She decided that at 6:30 this morning. Said every princess needs a castle, and ours is yellow, so. Heloisa's smile faded into something softer, almost painful. I never had crayon drawings on my fridge. My mother thought art belonged in galleries, not kitchens. The percolator hissed. Marcos poured 2 cups. Heloisa wrapped her hands around hers and stared into the black liquid like it might tell her the future. I have to make calls, she said finally. Encrypted ones. And I need clothes that don't scream. I spent the night in a mechanic's house. I can take you wherever you need. She shook her head. They'll be watching my apartment, my office, the usual hotels. I need to disappear for 48 hours while my loyal security team sweeps for traitors. After that I can fight back. Marcos understood what she was asking without saying it aloud. You want to stay here. Just 2 days, she said quickly. I'll pay whatever. No, the word came out harder than he intended. He softened. This isn't a hotel. If you stay because it's safe. Not because you rented the room. Heloisa studied him for a long moment, something unreadable moving behind her eyes. You really are different, Marcos Lima. His daughter chose that moment to barrel into the kitchen, still in unicorn pajamas, curls bouncing. She made a beeline for Heloisa and wrapped her arms around her legs. You're still here, she announced happily. Daddy said you might turn into a pumpkin at midnight, but you didn't. Heloisa crouched, suddenly graceful despite the oversized shirt. Turns out I'm a very stubborn pumpkin. The little girl giggled, then looked solemnly at her father. Can she stay for pancakes? Marcos met Heloisa's eyes. Something electric passed between them. Permission, danger, possibility. Pancakes it is, he said. They ate at the small table that wobbled on one short leg. His daughter chattered about school, about how rain was angel tears, about how Heloisa should come to career day and tell everyone she was a princess CEO. Heloisa listened with the same intensity she probably used in boardrooms, asking questions, laughing in the right places. When the child smeared chocolate on her cheek, Heloisa wiped it away with her thumb without thinking. Marcos watched them and felt the floor tilt under his feet. Marcos drove to the pharmacy for burner phones and to a tiny boutique in Piñeros where the owner, Dona Clara, owed him for fixing her son's motorcycle. He came back with dark jeans, a simple black t-shirt, flat sneakers, nothing that would turn heads. Heloisa changed in the bathroom and emerged looking younger, almost ordinary. Except for the eyes. Those were still lethal. She spent the afternoon on the couch with a laptop balanced on her knees, voice low and furious on encrypted calls. Marcos took his daughter to Dona Nages, fixed a leaking faucet in exchange for silence, then came home and pretended not to listen while Heloisa dismantled someone's career in Portuguese so elegant it sounded like poetry. By evening the house smelled of feijão, rice, and too much garlic. He cooked the way his mother taught him, slowly, with love. Heloisa set the table without being asked. His daughter insisted the princess sit next to her. Over dinner Heloisa told stories, not about mergers or stock prices, but about the first computer she built at 14 from discarded parts in Salvador, how she taught herself to code by candlelight during blackouts. The little girl hung on every word. Marcos found himself hanging too. Later, when his daughter was asleep, they sat on the front steps sharing a cold Brahma because the house felt too small for everything unsaid. I used to think softness was weakness, Heloisa said quietly, rolling the bottle between her palms. My father taught me that. He built an empire by never showing his throat. I was a better student than he ever expected. Marcos listened to the rain dripping from the eaves. Today your daughter hugged me and I almost cried, she continued. I don't cry, Marcos. Not since I was 9. He took a slow sip. Kids have a way of finding cracks. She turned to him. In the half-light her face was stripped of every mask. What happens when this is over? When I go back to being the woman who destroys people before breakfast? He met her gaze. You decide who you want to be when you walk out that door. Nobody else. For a long moment the only sound was the rain. Then she leaned over and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was two people who had spent their lives armored against the world suddenly finding a place the armor didn't fit. Her mouth tasted of beer and desperation and something sweet he couldn't name. His hands found the hem of the borrowed t-shirt, slid underneath to warm skin. She made a small sound against his lips that went straight through him. They broke apart only when headlights swept across the street. Breathless, they rested foreheads together. 2 days, she whispered. 2 days, he echoed, not sure if it was a promise or a warning. That night she slept in his bed. He took the couch again, but neither of them slept much. Heloisa's security team confirmed the brake lines had been cut with surgical precision. A message had been left on her desk at VRX headquarters, step down or the next one won't miss. She stood in Marcos's living room in borrowed jeans and yesterday's determination, hair pulled back, eyes arctic again. I have to go back tonight, she said. I need to be seen. Strong, untouchable. Marcos felt something inside his chest crack. And then I burned them all down. She said it calmly, like announcing the weather. His daughter ran in from the backyard, cheeks flushed, holding a daisy chain. Without hesitation she placed it on Heloisa's head like a crown. For the princess, she declared. Heloisa's composure fractured for a single heartbeat. She knelt, hugged the child so tightly the daisies crumpled. Thank you, meu amor, she whispered, voice thick. Marcos watched them and knew. with the clarity of a man watching his life split in two, that nothing would ever be the same. Heloisa changed back into the clothes he'd bought her, but she kept his white shirt folded in her bag, for luck, she said. A black SUV with tinted windows, driven by a bodyguard built like a refrigerator, waited at the curb. She paused at the door. I owe you more than I can ever repay. You don't owe me anything, he said. She stepped close, cupped his face. When this is over, I'll find you. He believed her. The bodyguard opened the door. Heloisa slid inside without looking back, because if she looked back she might not leave. The SUV disappeared around the corner. Marco stood on the steps long after it was gone, feeling the absence like a sudden drop in temperature. His daughter tugged his hand. As the princess coming back? He looked down at her, then at the yellow house that suddenly felt too big. I hope so, filha, he said. I really hope so. Inside, on the kitchen counter, lay a single daisy and an envelope. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a debit card with no name, a scrap of paper with a 10-digit number, and a note in elegant handwriting. For anything you or she ever need. I don't make promises lightly. Marco stared at it for a long time. Then he tucked the card into the tin where he kept his daughter's future college fund, kissed the top of her curly head, and started dinner. The headlines exploded the next morning. Heloisa Castro survives assassination attempt. VRX CEO returns to work, stronger than ever. 3 telecom executives arrested in corporate sabotage scandal. Marcos watched it all on the tiny TV in the garage break room while pretending to fix a carburetor. Heloisa's face filled the screen. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect ice, as she announced the early launch of Progetto Seu Aberto and the immediate dismissal of an entire board division. She never mentioned him. Of course she didn't. Life tried to go back to normal. He woke at dawn, took his daughter to school, worked 12-hour shifts, came home smelling of gasoline, read her bedtime stories, fell asleep on the couch with the TV on. But the house felt different. Quieter. The white shirt she had worn never came back from the dry cleaner, he couldn't bring himself to pick it up. Some nights he took out the debit card and turned it over in his fingers. He never used it. It felt like cheating. Then, exactly 23 days after she left, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered on the third ring. Marcos Lima. The voice was cool, professional. Please hold for Sonora Castro. A click. Then her voice, softer than he remembered. Oi, mechanic. His heart stopped. Oi, princess, he said, and heard her smile through the phone. Are you free tonight? I can be. Good. 8 o'clock. There'll be a car outside your house. Wear something nice, but not too nice. I want you to look like you. The line went dead. He stood in the middle of his living room holding a dead phone, grinning like an idiot. His daughter looked up from her coloring book. Was that the princess? Yeah, filha, that was the princess. She considered this solemnly. Tell her to bring her crown. The car was a discreet Audi, not the armored monster from before. The driver wore civilian clothes and didn't speak. They drove to a tiny apartment in Higienopolis that definitely wasn't on any official record. Heloisa opened the door herself. She wore jeans and one of his old Flamengo jerseys, the red and black one he thought he'd lost months ago. Her hair was down, no makeup, bare feet. She looked like she belonged there. Before he could speak she crossed the room, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him like the world was ending and beginning at the same time. When they finally broke apart she rested her forehead against his. I missed you, she said simply. I noticed, he said, and she laughed, the same surprised laugh from the coffee pot morning. She took his hand and led him to the balcony. Sao Paulo glittered below them, alive and chaotic and beautiful. I did what I said I would, she told him. They're all gone. Prison, disgrace, exile. Seu Aberto launches in 9 days. Half the country already has free internet because of the beta towers. He waited. She turned to him, eyes suddenly uncertain. I don't know how to do this part, Marcos. The part after the war. The part where I'm just a person. He brushed a curl from her face. You already did it once. For 48 hours you were just Heloisa who burned pancakes and let a 6-year-old put daisies in her hair. You can do it again. She bit her lip. And if I can't balance both worlds, then we'll figure it out. Together. For the first time in her life, Heloisa Castro, the woman who had never asked for help, leaned into someone and let herself be held. The yellow house in Pompeii now had a new coat of paint, bright, sunflower yellow. The garage had been expanded with quiet, anonymous funding. Marcos still fixed cars, but now he owned the place and closed on Sundays. On the fridge, among dozens of new crayon drawings, hung a framed photograph, Marcos, his daughter wearing a paper crown, and Heloisa, smiling the kind of smile the magazines had never captured, standing together under a yellow sun. On weekends a black Audi sometimes parked outside. The most powerful woman in Brazil would arrive in jeans and one of Marcos's old shirts, carrying groceries and a new board game for a little girl who now called her Tia Lo. The world still called her the Ice Queen. Only 2 people on Earth knew she melted every time a 6-year-old, now 7, wrapped her arms around her legs and asked if princesses could stay for pancakes. And every night, when the city finally quieted, Heloisa Castro, billionaire, genius, warrior, fell asleep in the arms of a mechanic who had once given her his last clean shirt on the worst night of her life. Some debts can never be paid with money. Some crowns are made of daisies. And some love stories begin with a phone call at 4 in the morning, in the middle of the storm.